Well, hello, and welcome to Friday. It is day 5 of 9 weeks to a novel. I am your host, coach, and chief motivator, Akira Angel, and we are writing a novel together in 9 weeks. Well, 8 weeks now, right? All right, so today we are going to be talking about our first day of plotting. And I think that you will find this very exciting. But what I want you to remember is that you can always modify my style for what you do, right? All right, so let's get started here. So my first question for you is, why do we need a plot? And basically, the plot is there to torture your characters, to give them obstacles to overcome on their way to character growth. We need to always look at it like that, right? The plot is, it's there to entertain the audience as well, but really what the audience is doing is they are growing as your characters are growing. So the plot is there to give them obstacles to overcome, and it allows them to grow internally while overcoming those obstacles. And I wanted to differentiate something for you, that the plot is the story that your characters take from the events that happen to them. And this is a very fine line, or, difficult to explain. So, for example, if something happens to you in your life, let's say you have a car accident, one person might walk away from the car accident saying, thank God I survived. And the other one would walk away saying, oh my God, I can't believe this happened to me. Bad things always happen to me. So the story that your characters tell themselves is what you want to convey in your novel, because that's what your reader is going to walk away with. Now, every reader is going to walk away with something slightly different, okay, no matter how clear you want to make it for them. And the other thing is, it's good to leave some, room for leeway or some ambivalence in some things, right? But you want to remember that the plot is not the story that you're telling. It's not the actions that happen. It's how your characters reflect on those actions and the story that they tell themselves about what happened. All right. So I'm going to give you an example of this. So 3 people get fired from a job, right? Person A, or character A, goes into a drunken stupor, ends up losing their house and getting a divorce in the next year. Person B gets angry, develops a competitor for the original business, takes all the market share, and the original business that fired them, their original boss, goes broke. So that's, revenge. Person C breaks into the old boss's home, steals his money, kills him, and ends up on a beach in the Bahamas. My question for you is, which one of these does not make a great story? Of course, it's person A, right? Because person A basically took this, walked away, and told themselves a negative story, and so they end up losing their house and getting a divorce. Person B and person C both told themselves something different. They created something different in their mind, and one got revenge, and then, one ended up living their dream life in the Bahamas. So basically, you want to always think about, what story are my characters telling themselves about what's happening? So after every action, you're going to be interpreting that action in your characters' minds for your reader. All right. There are many, many, many plotting books and plotting ideas that I use parts of. So these are just a few of them, okay? The Story Fix Formula in Story Engineering by Larry Brooks. I've read it, seen him speak many times, and I absolutely love parts of this book for story structure. It's just fantastic. And actually with the Story Fix Formula, I was able to fix stories that I had written before just by thinking about them in a different way, right? All right, The Anatomy of Story by John Truby is absolutely fantastic. And then The Story Grid by Sean Coyne. And in fact, I have all 3 of those pretty much right here. Story Grid's here, Story Fix is here. And I mean, they're within easy reach. I use them all the time. And then there's 2 more, Plotting and Structure, or Plot and Structure by James Scott Bell, and then Plot Gardening by Chris Fox. I think those are on my Kindle. Um, those are also good, but I don't use them as much as I use these first three. Okay, in thinking about plotting, and I mean, I would say I've read the first three like many times, or at least yeah, at least parts of them many times that are the most applicable to me, which is obviously what you need to do for yourself in your writing career, right? All right, so the plot gardening is more for pantsers. So you're going to hear the difference between plotters and pantsers, and I wanted to bring that up now. Brandon Sanderson makes a distinction between architects, which are plotters, versus gardeners, which are pantsers. And obviously, I'm teaching you to be an architect. And the reason why I think you need to do that is because the complexity and the relationships between your characters and and with the plot and the theme, I feel are too complex in today's stories to just try to start writing and make it all up. And I think that after the 8 days of doing the character building, world building, and plotting, you will also see that. You will see that your story is, leaps and bounds ahead of what you would have gotten if you had just sat down and started to write. But anyway, for if you do really want to pants, and the other thing is, you could still do a lot of this preparation and then go pretty lightly on your outline, on your plot outline, and get a kind of a half pantsing scenario where you leave your subconscious a lot more latitude or room to work. So that's kind of what Chris Fox is talking about. He's saying that it's about planting the right seeds and the right kind of soil so that when you sit down and write, you have all of the things there at your disposal. And I would say, sure, if you've really planned your characters right and you've really plotted, given yourself a really good premise, you might be able to do this on your own. And so if you're interested in that, I recommend Plot Gardening by Chris Fox. It'll help you get there. Also, for this, you could Google Master Beat Sheet or Master Story Planning Worksheet, and a bunch of different authors and their methods are going to come up. I recommend Jamie Gold's blog. She has a lot of things. I think she breaks down Frankenstein and a bunch of other. She has a bunch of other blogs that have information on story engineering. She also likes Larry Brooks as well. So, all right, those books will be linked in the description. And as, for now, you can just use mine, but as you become, a better writer and you go through, more novels, if you want to expand on what I'm saying in these lectures, I really recommend picking up some of the amazing plotting books. John Truby is actually a screenplay writer, so he, comes from a completely different perspective. And I found that the movie perspective, as you can tell, a lot of the things I reference in here are movies. I found that the movie perspective really works a lot with my kind of science fiction fantasy brain. So it's always good to think and to read about how other people are plotting and breaking down stories and recommending that you do things. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is write our story premise. And I remember, around day 1 and day 2, I was saying you probably have a main idea of what your story is about. And so today, the first thing we're going to do is work on that. Your story premise can be written in one sentence. It usually contains the protagonist, the setting, and the primary conflict. Now, we worked a little bit with this yesterday in building up our characters, making them extra, making the setting extra. So now we're just going to really write that in one sentence. And I have a couple of examples here from The Anatomy of Story by John Truby. So the first one, when a princess falls into mortal danger, a young man uses his skills as a fighter to save her and defeat the evil forces of the Galactic Empire. Of course, it's Star Wars, right? The second one, the youngest son of a mafia family takes revenge on the man who shot his father and becomes the new godfather. So that's The Godfather. So what we're doing is we are looking only for really the protagonist, the setting, and the primary conflict. And again, you want to make sure that these are the most extra that you can make them, right? So we have a princess. I would have called him a farm boy at this point, or something to, differentiate him. And then he uses his skills as a Jedi fighter to save her and defeat the evil forces. So, I would try to make that a little bit, stand out a little bit more, especially if I was going to query the story to agents and editors, right? They're going to want to see this premise just jump out at them like, oh my God, this is fantastic. Billionaire dinosaurs theme park, you want that kind of reaction to your novel. So working on the story premise is a really, really good idea. All right. And so after we have our premise, we're going to work at it. And I remember a lecture by Larry Brooks. I think I mentioned it the other day, where he said most people quit before they have a great story because they just get one and they think, wow, this is the best thing ever. I couldn't think of anything better than this. And then they just start writing because they're so eager to start writing, which is understandable, right? Especially if it's like your first couple of novels. But then you kind of run out of these ideas, or you realize that your ideas are kind of generic and you want to try to make those better. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take that premise and we're going to write 7 ideas of how that can evolve before you pick the best one. And then you work at it to make it the most high concept that you can make it. So you're going to use everything from your characters, your world, and day one, everything that you've learned. You're going to come up with this one amazing premise that you're going to use for your story. And as you're writing, every day you're going to go back and you're going to look at that premise and say, am I fulfilling what's happening in the premise? What I said was going to happen here. Is that what's happening as I'm writing? So when you're thinking of your premise, you're going to ask which idea is going to let my characters grow the most? Which idea is going to make my villain the smartest, most evil villain of all time, right? Or make my obstacle the worst, the thing that nobody could overcome. We're trying to defeat the undefeatable, right? So the first thing we're going to do is work at the premise, and then we're going to go into looking at our story. Now, there are 5 elements of story that are pretty much agreed upon by most people. That would be the inciting incident, where, first we see the character in their real life, then we have the incident, which makes them realize that they have to change, and it kind of starts them on this journey. And then as the journey progresses, we have these complications. Then we have a crisis, which would be the black moment. Then we have the climax, where they overcome the final obstacle or the villain. And then we have our conclusion. Now, there are many ways that people have tried to explain this, and I have a bunch of different charts here. And, I wanted to mention, before we get into the charts, that when this structure is used for a chapter or a beat, like a scene, the conclusion becomes the revelation or a new inciting incident. And, that's really how you create a page turner. Because instead of, after the climax, there being a conclusion to the chapter, you get a new revelation, and then they got to turn the page because they got to see what happens next, right? So, all right, so we're done with that. So now, I think I'm going to turn off my camera for a few minutes. That way, that way you don't have to see, or I'm not blocking the picture here. All right, so when we're looking at our structure of our novel, there is a beginning, a middle, and an end. And what I've done here is I've given you, 4 different charts, because each author is going to be attracted to different kinds of charts. Some authors are attracted to this 3-act structure. Some are attracted to a 5-act structure. Some are attracted to 7-act structure. Some are attracted to the hero's journey. and some are attracted to, the 22 act structure, which is the last one here. So what you have to do is think about how how much do I want structure to tell me when I'm plotting my story or when I'm writing it. Okay. And the other thing that I like about these is that depending on who made this, so this one is Ingrid Sundberg, they have a different way of seeing what these are. And they will give you, so for example, at first when there's a call to adventure, most people refuse it, right? And so if we look at how they're refusing it, it's either called threshold guardians. So someone is stopping them from doing it, like the Dursleys kept throwing away the letter. Defining moment, separation, reluctance. Luke was reluctant. He's like, I can't go with you. I have duties here. New situation. So in the Matrix, he couldn't climb out the building, right? The debate or meeting the mentor. So you can think about these. All of these give someone an excuse to not take this call, to not go on the adventure. And having all of these in a chart at your disposal allows you to choose one that you feel like works the best with your character and is going to be the most opposite of what they're going to do at the end, right? So at the end, if they're like kind of pushing guardians aside or their mentor dies and they have to act for themselves, you might, choose threshold guardians. And at the end, if they're like really taking action, you might choose the new situation. Oh, I just realized, with Neo, at first he's afraid of the new situation. And then at the end, that's all he's doing basically is going into new situations, going into the building. So, yeah, you want to take a look at kind of all of these before you make your decision, especially if this is your first novel. You want to think about your premise and think about, okay, which one of these is the most like what I think I might write anyway? All right, so let's not try to push against how you would normally act or how you would normally write. Okay, so whatever, my tip for you is that whatever the character learns in the rising action will not be the key to overcoming the villain. I think I've said this before, but I want you to really remember it. So, in the rising action, Harry learns all of these magic. He goes to all these magic classes. Luke learns how to use this lightsaber, right? But neither of those were the key to win in the end. So you want to remember that. When you're giving your character obstacles going up this action, you want them to be learning all these things and doing all these things, but then you don't want those to be how they win. So, and tying that together is very, very interesting and a little bit difficult, right? Unless you have something like an academy story or things like that. Jinjin, no. Sorry about that. It's the Chihuahua's day to bark. All right, so our second one is The Hero's Journey. All right, so this is Christopher Vogler. And this is going to show you two ways that the heroes actually get to the end. All right. And what I like, again, about this is that it gives you two different ways to look at the same process. So instead of having an ordeal up top, we might have a big change down at the bottom. So it's very nice. Because, here's the hero's journey is what he's calling it up top, and down below he's calling it the character arc. I think either of these can kind of work, right? And if you're in, let's say you're writing an urban romance, you can kind of, change these or modify these to how your characters actually are in their story. But, isn't it cool if you have a modern day romance, but you kind of have a hero's journey? That's really exciting. I'm trying to think of a good movie that would, well, maybe someone will put one in the comments where there's a hero's journey. Oh, I have one. It's the Meg Ryan, Hugh Jackman, where he comes forward in time and then she goes back in time. That's a wonderful kind of hero's journey type romance, or hero's journey type character arc. That's also a romance, right? Um, let's see. All right, and then 6-act structure. Um, so this is Michael Haig. And again, he has up top, he has the inner journey, and down at the bottom, he has the outer journey. So when you're doing this structure, you're really thinking of both at the same time. What is the person learning inside, and then what is the person doing on the outside? And that's quite nice, because how I've differentiated it between, character growth and then our plot, that is also what he's doing. So no matter which style you use, you might take a look at this one to think about, how are we kind of melding up that inner character arc with this outer plot arc, right? And then the last one that I have here is the Truby 22-act structure. And I wanted to point out some amazing things about this one that are put in that aren't in the other ones. One of them is the fake ally or opponent. So if you want to write, a kind of thriller, or you want to have somebody who's a fake opponent that turns into an ally. So we're looking at like Professor Snape, or some of these great gray characters that you can't tell if they're an ally or an opponent. This would be, this shows you in this structure how to really put those in to your novel. So, we have the fake ally or opponent, and then the second star is the attack by the ally. And then he also has here an audience revelation. So something that the audience didn't know that you're going to show them at the plot conclusion. And then at the end here, he has the self-revelation and the moral decision, which I also really like because it's just put there. All right, so my point of showing you all of these structures, turn this back on. My point of showing you all of these structures is that there are so many ways to get to the end plot of your novel, okay? And it doesn't matter which one you choose. I don't choose any of them. I have my own combination, which I'm going to show you in this PowerPoint. But what you want to do is you want to take a look at all of them and choose the pieces that you like, that are going to give you a great story and that are going to make it feel unique. Okay, the biggest challenge is to make it unique to you. Well, maybe it's not the biggest challenge because we all write differently, right? So the biggest thing that you want to do is make it unique to you. You want an amazing premise, and you want to make the character arc something that will be really transformative for the reader. All right. So whichever one of those allows you to really get into it and think of it in this way, that's what you want to do. All right. So which one you choose doesn't matter. But if you write in a series, you must be consistent. All right. So one of the things that I didn't understand when I was first writing series books is that every book in the series really needs to be about the same length. We're not going to talk about Harry Potter, okay, because that's a completely different phenomenon. But when you look at most series on a bookshelf in Barnes & Noble or wherever you go to look, the books in the series are usually around the same length. All right? Why is that? Because readers have a something specific that they get from an author. It is the tone, it is the pace, it is the feeling, it is the way that they end and that they feel when they put down that novel. Okay? So, for example, when you pick up a Michael Crichton book, you know what you're in for, right? It's going to be fast-paced. It's going to be a crazy world. There's going to be some frightening things. It's just going to be an amazing ride, right? And then you know what you're going to pick up if you pick up Jane Austen book, right? It's going to be a slow build. You're going to really get into the era that it was written in, right? And so each author has a certain feel about their books. The way that they get this feeling into their books has to do with the way that they plan their characters and the way that they do their pacing. And the way that they do their pacing has a lot to do with their structure. Okay? So you're going to find that as you start writing, your books will naturally have the same amount of chapters, right? I found after, book 3 or 4, all my books have pretty much 33 chapters, 33 to 35. It doesn't matter what I do; it was just naturally coming out that way. And every time, and that would just naturally be because I felt as I was writing it, I was writing the same type of complications. It's how I wanted to read, right? So I basically have this style for me. Now, you might be a person who writes 50 chapter books. That's how long it takes for you to get into the story, because the amount of chapters that you write when you go back to, let me talk about this here. I'll go back here. When you have a 50 act or a 50 chapter book, Act 1 is going to be so many chapters, Act 2 is going to be so many chapters, and Act 3 is going to be so many chapters. And it'll be completely different for a 33 chapter book or a 100 chapter book, right? So when you're writing a 50 chapter book, maybe that's how long it takes you to get through this Act 1. That's how much stuff you want to happen. For me, I find that 33 chapters is perfect. Really my first 4 chapters are kind of this call to action and all that. And then I have all of this rising action that just, basically keeps building. All the reveals keep building. And then I have a pretty short end. But that's just how my books flow. So you're going to find out when you write, especially if this is your first novel, you're going to find out. And, it's funny because as you're writing it, so you might actually write more plot or less plot starting out here if this is your first time writing an outline. And you might find that you're like, oh my God, tomorrow I'm supposed to write the climax, but I don't feel like I'm there yet. And so at that point, you realize, oh, wait a minute, maybe I'm a longer writer. You add in a few more things, and then that's how you kind of discover who you are. So this first plot outline, especially if you're a new writer, can vary, and it can vary even as you write the story. So don't be hard and fast to it. I mean, if I've shown you anything today, it's that every author has a different way that they go about these things. And there are kind of these tried and true story structures, but every author is going to modify those as well, right? So we could look behind every movie, book, whatever, and see these 3 acts, but every author's done them completely differently. All right, so you're going to create a plot structure that you like as you create your plot. So I give you 3 alternative ideas. Number 1, have your ideas. Today in the assignment, we're going to kind of mind map or think on page 2 before we even start plotting. We're going to think of some things that could happen. We're going to think of, obstacles and stuff like that. And then by the time we get to plotting it, we can say, okay, wait, I have, 20 obstacles. How can I set up my characters? So you have your ideas, and then you just go back, look at these 4, see which fits, take a look online if you want, if none of these appeal to you, and see if you can, plot something that works. The next one is to choose one of these structures and create the plot line to match it. So if you really have no idea, if you're going through the mind mapping process and you're like, gosh, I have really no idea how what obstacles I'm going to do, then what I want you to do is take one of these And you are going to follow this path to think of what is happening to the character, right? And it doesn't matter which one you pick. I mean, you could pick this 3-act structure, you could pick the hero's journey. But what these do is they give you a format for making this plot based on your premise, okay? All right. And the next one would be to create your own plot outline. This is what I do. This is what a lot of authors do. Once they've written a few novels, they know their own style. They start really looking around. Most authors don't start with this set of lessons, okay? When I started writing, there was no workshop like this. Nobody was taking me through how to write a novel. So I was just writing things and reading books and trying to go to conferences or go to classes and figure it out myself. So this is kind of a shortcut. This class is a shortcut to allow you to choose now, all right? But you may find as you're writing that your first choice wasn't your best choice, or that you want to change it a little bit. And that's where creating your own plot outline comes in. All right. Now, we talked about it in day one that you would choose 2 genres. Most people now are choosing 2 genres to make their story unique, right? I don't recommend science fiction and fantasy, although you can do it. It's very, very difficult. All right. But there's nothing wrong with a science fiction romance, or a Western romance, or a historical romance, or a science fiction Western, like, Star Wars, like merging together 2 genres that are rarely seen before, using different types of things. I remember Firefly was also a science fiction Western, right? I remember them having like cows on the ship at one point, right? Or yeah, I think it was cows or horses on the ship at one point, which really brought home that Western feel to it. So even if it's been done a little bit before, you could do it in a different way. But you want to pick 2 genres to make your story unique. And I'm going to explain to you how I do this. So for my science fiction, fantasy, and romance, I do science fiction in the cyborg perspective. That deals with the ships, the tech, and all that in the odd chapters. And then I deal with the fantasy from the elven perspective. That's in the even chapters. Okay? I pretty much do this in every book. But as I was plotting my series, I got a lot better at plotting this out around books 4 and 5. I got a lot better at plotting this out. So, because again, we all grow as authors, even as we write. So, and then within the story, I follow the romantic structure of romancing the beat. So I put in my kind of like romantic things that are happening into chapters as I'm going. All right, so I'm going to show you my plotting structure. Okay, I think you can still see it. All right, so I alternate between science fiction and fantasy. So you can see that my science fiction chapters are here, and I'm building up the cyborg character, and I'm looking at all the science fiction stuff that's happening, right? They're on their ships, they're learning how to use tech, they're doing different things that have to build up their character, and they're dealing with, specifics of alien technology and the future of humanity. Well, they're not human, but, the future of their race and things like that. Then, in my even chapters, I'm dealing with the fantasy. The elves are learning about magic. They're learning about, their tradition and history. We weave in maybe some folklore or something like that. For the elf, so when they go to do something, let's say they go on a mission, for the cyborg, it feels like a mission. And for the elf, it feels like an epic quest, right? So what you want to do is you want to give people kind of the experience of both genres, even though people are doing, the characters are doing the same thing, right? And then what I do again is I kind of layer in the romance. I might just have a thing where like they hold hands and then like maybe they kiss or, like these kind of things. And then also, using some of the finer details of like when they have deep conversations and that kind of stuff. So I have, if you are doing romance, I have Gwen Hayes' a link here for the free PDF, which you're not going to be able to click on, but it's called romancingthebeat.com and then / free hyphen stuff. And if you go to the bottom of that page and sign up for her newsletter, you will get her worksheet on how to fit romance in your novel, like how, kind of like the structure of romance. All right. So, for you, I recommend, if you've never written a novel before, that you take these and that this is what you follow with your own genres. And I'm going to explain, that might seem so weird, right? But I'm going to explain how that can happen. Let's see. All right. Really quickly, I'll explain it here. So Sherlock Holmes, we see, especially in the TV shows, we see his point of view, and then we see Watson's point of view, right? So if you were going to write this as a novel, maybe the odd chapters are from Sherlock's point of view, and they're moving forward that mystery, right? And then the even chapters move along his story with Watson and his landlord, and then the woman that Sherlock becomes attracted to. Now, interestingly, you could still do both of these from Sherlock's point of view. It's just that you're alternating where the odd chapters are moving forward that mystery and giving you those reveals, and the even chapters are moving forward his other relationships, right? Same thing if we look at Twilight. The odd chapters can be about her interactions with her father and Jacob and outside of school, right? And then the murders, and then the even chapters are her interactions in school with Edward and the vampires. And if you think back through the movie, that's kind of what happens, right? She goes to school, she goes home. She goes to school, she goes home. She goes to school, she goes home. And so this is a great way, if you think about it as if you're like just shooting a movie, you start to understand that we do naturally do this. This is how we tell stories. We tell kind of one point of view, then we tell another point of view. Then we go back to the first and move it along, and then we tell something else, all right? So say that you're doing a murder mystery in a very small town. Odd chapters move forward the mystery. The even chapters move forward the small town drama, right? So it is completely possible to do this. And what you'll find is that you can, break the structure in certain ways so that it doesn't feel repetitive. But I haven't had a problem with it yet. I haven't had anybody say to me, "Wow, I didn't want to have the cyborg all the way through or the elf all the way through." I don't know. I didn't want to go between those two points of view. If you do this and you really do it well, the story really does blend in. The arcs blend in together, right? Let's see. And then with Harry Potter, same thing. The odd chapters kind of move along the Voldemort story. Even chapters move along the reader learning about Hogwarts and the students. The funny thing about this is that, like with Twilight and Harry Potter, the original Sherlock Holmes, they didn't have, like I said, a class like this. They weren't breaking down stories the way that we do now. And so, maybe their books don't follow this, and that makes them a little bit less tight than they could be, because the author's just trying to figure it out as they write, right? But today we have enough plotting books and things to where we don't need to just kind of figure it out. We can just try to plot it out and at least think that way. All right. So when you're starting to write a science fiction chapter, you're thinking a certain way. When you're starting to write a fantasy chapter, you're thinking another way. A funny thing, when I was writing book 4, Valjean, of my Cyborg Warrior series, I literally sat down and I wrote all of Valjean's story in one weekend. It was like a 4-day weekend. So it wasn't 2 days, right? I wrote all of his story and I just left the even chapters blank. And then I started thinking about who she would be, how she would fit in, all that kind of stuff. And I went back and I wrote all the even chapters. And the hilarious thing is, your mind works in mysterious ways. But when I got to these things of like the climax and stuff, it just honestly just started coming together in ways that I didn't expect. And I was like, my God, I didn't know that you could do this. So once you are doing this for a while, you become better at it, and you might even be able to do that kind of thing as well, if you want to, just to try to keep yourself in that one genre mode and then keep yourself in the second genre mode. All right, so in today's assignment, you're going to plot the even chapters. Wait a minute. Should you plot the even chapters? No. You're going to plot the odd chapters. We're going to start with chapter 1, and we're going to plot the odd chapters. Let's see if I can get out of this here. I'm going to change that so that if people go back and look at this, you're going to plot the odd chapters for your first genre. Okay? If you haven't done so, I encourage you to go online and search for the tropes and conventions of your genre. Okay? For example, science fiction readers expect authors to use some of the following: space travel or time travel, spaceships and aliens, moral dilemmas, questions about the future of humanity, questions about the use of technology, ethics, morality, questions of life and death, right? So you want to go online, you want to look at the conventions of your genre, because that is what you're going to be including in your plot, okay? Now I have the next page. I have merging in the conventions from your two genres. Now, this is from The Secrets of Genre by John Truby, okay? And what I wanted to do was leave this up for a couple of minutes so that you can take a look and see your two genres that you're thinking of. And if you're thinking of something outside of these, that's totally fine, okay? So, I mean, God, there's, Western, there's historical, there's all kinds of things. But take a look and write down the goal and the technique of your two genres that you're looking at. I'll give you like 30 seconds to do it. All right, so now we're going to do the plotting, we're going to plot even and odd chapters. So the homework is going to ask you to plot. So today is odd chapters. On Monday, we're going to do even chapters. And what this is going to do is we're going to move the story along in two genres, even if one of them is mostly just character building, right? So if your even is just like drama, or let's say your odd chapters are just drama, it's what's happening with the character and their boyfriend or their family or their small town, that's totally fine. But then you want to have another story in there that is from a different genre, that's moving the plot along in a different way, right? So by doing this, we are taking advantage of both character interactions and world building. And the best stories will twine these together at the climax. The characters and the world will meet up in the best ways. All right, so now I have my examples, my Sherlock Holmes, Twilight, and Harry Potter. And again, you can modify these if you want to. All right, so the Creating a Plot worksheet is available at bit.ly/9weeksday5, and the QR code is right here on the screen. We are going to go ahead and take a 5-minute break to get coffee, Our 5 minute break is always run in place, right? And give you some time to download the worksheet. And then we're going to come back and get started with your premise. Okay, so we are now going to go into our first sprint. On this sprint, you are going to write your story premise, and you're going to work at this premise using those extra things that we did before, the high concept ideas and the extra character techniques that we learned before, right? If you get done with this seven, or you feel like you've worked on your premise enough, then what you're going to do is you're going to go to page two. You're going to pick the best idea from your premise and start writing more details about the plot. All right? So, as soon as you have your premise, you want to spend as much time as you can thinking about that plot. What are the obstacles? Going back and looking at the charts. And in the homework, I actually have the four charts that I showed on the screen. All right, so you don't have to go back and look at them in the video. You can look at them on the homework packet. All right. And so basically, you're going to do this for at least 20 minutes in our second sprint. But if you get a chance, it's a good idea to start it a little bit sooner so that you have a lot of time to think about this plot before you're actually going to start plotting it in your genres, right? All right, so we're going to start our first one here, 40 minutes, and I will see you back shortly. Okay, how did you do? Um, do you have an amazing premise? If you do, feel free to write it in the comments. Feel free to keep it to yourself if you want to keep it private, but it's up to you. And we're going to take our first break here, and then we will come back and do our second page. All right. So drink water, dance to a song. I'm going to go refill my water. It's been running low. And I'll see you back here in about 5 minutes. All right. All right, and we're back for our next set of sprints. Jen, the writing mascot, wanted to come and say hi to you. Actually, I think there are a bunch of squirrels outside that she has been barking at, so this is a way to keep her quiet, right? All right, so for sprint number 2, we are going to pick the best idea from your premise, and we are going to start writing more details about the plot. All right, so you can do this by picking one of the plot outlines and basically taking your premise at the top of the page right here and then starting to write in the details. What I want you to do is just pick well, actually, for right now, you could do one or the other. You could just pick one character and write the details from their point of view, or you could write the details for the overall plot, right? And then when we get to the next page, which is plotting from one point of view, then you would just kind of get into that character's mindset, their frame of reference, and then you would start writing the plot from their point of view. Okay? So you're going to write more details about the plot. Now, one thing I want to mention is that, which I'll talk more about tomorrow or Monday, is writing by reveals. So one of the things that you can do to really make your plot amazing is to write by what the reader will learn in each chapter. Okay, so we can write by obstacles, right? But in the chapters, those obstacles provide the character a way to learn. So you kind of want to think of both sides when you're doing this. Anyway, pick one of the story arcs and start to think about what could happen in your novel leading up to it, from both the character arc and your first genre. So, whichever genre you picked, you're going to think about that and that character and what can happen. Okay? All right. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. Even if you don't watch this live, I'm still looking at the comments. I take a look every night to see if, people are asking questions. And I will continue to do that. Get to my timer here. And we're going to start our next 20 minutes now, all right? And I will see you shortly. Good luck. If you've made it this far, congratulations. And let's just keep going, right? Power on, use your imagination. You can do it. And we are back. It is time for our second break. How did you do plotting your first genre? I'm very interested in how it's going for you, and whether thinking about this through the character's eyes is really helping to make your story better, and also improving the premise. All of the things that we've done so far. Of all the things we've done so far, what do you think has been the most beneficial for your writing? Um, if you want, you can leave that in the comments. And we are on break 3. Today is 2 minutes of upper body stretching. So I will leave you to that. And don't forget to refill your water or get some tea, right? All right. And we will be back in a few minutes. I will start the timer now. And I'll see you back shortly. Okay, and we are back from our coffee break or water break. Um, let's go on to our next sprint, sprint number 3. So we are going to pick one character, we're going to pick one genre, we're going to pick one story structure, and we're going to plot the story structure for that first genre below in the odd chapters, right? Don't forget to plot by reveals. So, what your character is going to learn, that is the best way to plot. And if you want to, you could put, basically the main point of the chapter and then the reveal, or the obstacle and then the reveal, right? And I love doing this plotting process this way because it prevents your story from having a sagging middle. Having to think of all of the obstacles and the reveals that are going to come in the middle keeps your reader turning pages, right? To find out what's going to happen next. So, this is why you, as the author, make the big bucks, right? You have to plan this thing so that every single chapter is giving them something new in a different way, right? All right, so here we go. Good luck. And if you're still on the idea stage, don't worry about that. You've got plenty of time. So we will get started right now, and I'll see you back in 20 minutes. And we are back one more time. How is it going? I'm so excited to hear about how your first genre is going. If you want to write in the comments. And we are going to take a 5-minute break and then we will be back again. Okay, Jinjin wanted to come back and support you through your last sprint of the day. We are going to continue this first genre. We're going to continue plotting it out. Um, Again, let me know if you have any questions or comments. Um, keep remembering to plot by reveals. Keep remembering your character arc, right? And keep going. Good luck. All right, and we are finished for the day. Congratulations on finishing week 1 of 9 weeks to a novel. Um, you should really just take some time off, enjoy the weekend, uh, and your mind will be subconsciously working on this story, and things will start to become clear to you. So when you come back on Monday, it'll be much easier for you, and that's when we'll start to plot our second genre, and things will really start to coalesce for you in this process, right? Again, if you have any questions, you can leave a comment here or you can email me. Give your brain a rest. And if you learned anything amazing, go ahead and share it with us all. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you back bright and early Monday morning. Have a great weekend.